My guest today is Dr. Vibha Bakshi, a critically acclaimed, multi-award winning filmmaker and recipient of 4 National Film Awards, which is the highest honor in Indian cinema. Vibha has also received an honorary doctorate from Boston University for her impactful work. Her latest documentary, Sunrise, challenges gender injustice globally and was selected by the UN for promotion in 1,400 institutions and as part of the hashtag He for She movement. Vibha's previous film, Daughters of Mother India, spotlighted gender violence and became the most awarded social campaign globally in 2017. Through her films, Vibha continues to inspire change and spark crucial conversations about social justice. And I watched both those films yesterday, and there were so many different emotions which I felt, and I'm just looking forward to unpacking what inspired her, what kept her going, because it's no mean feat. So, a very warm welcome to Atlanta Diaries, Vibha, and thank you for this conversation.
Thank you, Enma, and thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for watching the films. It completely changes the conversation when you've been through that experience and then having a heart-to-heart with you.
Absolutely. I think my whole perspective to you, to the conversation, to the topic changed, but I'm really glad I watched it. So, you mentioned that your mom is your hero. So, share with us, how do you believe her influence shaped you into the person you are today?
So, Enma, I've grown up seeing a lot of love and happiness in the family. And at the time when, I was applying to the United States, very few girls from business families were going out to study. I'm 54 now, so I'm talking about a long time back. But I remember being one of the first few that left from my school. And I remember, another big business family, they approached my parents and said, who will marry her if she gets so overqualified? And my father at that time said, we'll deal with it then. But over time, my mother became my hero because I watched her, how she navigated her own life. And in a business family, when differences are laid out between a son and a daughter, I saw her trying to break those patriarchal norms, and a lot of respect for that. And these are the values that she inculcated in me, and they became very much part of my storytelling.
I want to sort of double click on that fairness. We speak about these preordained codes which have been written over centuries. So, any anecdotes which have still stayed with you on when you saw that urge to challenge the codes?
I think she's continuously challenging the status quo, which is not easy. I mean, in so many families, just because you are born the son, you are given this plethora of opportunities, whether you're competent or not.
Mm.
And sometimes I laugh. I tell my father, I said, oh, Papa, with the kind of awards these films have gotten, maybe if I were a son, you would have bought CNN for me. So somebody has to dare to have these conversations.
Hmm.
And actually, that's the hardest thing to do, because once things get uncomfortable, people step back.
Absolutely. So let's shift gears. You studied journalism and broadcasting, but you sort of chose filmmaking. So tell us what inspired that passion or that choice, and how did you navigate then that journey?
Actually, I started my career in broadcast journalism. So I became a news anchor and a reporter. And that's how my journey started, and actually was also part of CNBC's launch team.
Mm-hmm.
So very much I was doing
Mm.
business reporting. It was focused on headlines and, daily news. But I think I was shifting from just making headlines to more pressing and urgent
Mm.
issues. And I could see that shift happening, but I didn't know how I was supposed to do that. And in a couple of years, I got married to an amazing man, and he actually stands as our hero for the He for She movement.
Mm.
So Vishal and I moved to New York, and it is here that Vishal met my co-director and co-producer, Marianne Delio, on a flight. She's an Oscar-winning filmmaker. And Vishal introduced us, and my journey in filmmaking began. Vishal was coming back from skiing. She was coming back from the Sundance Film Festival. And I would say life changed from there. She not only became my co-producer and my co-director, but she became my mentor. And if you ask me the fundamentals of documentary filmmaking, I learned from Marianne Delio. And the most important lesson that I learned is when you take up burning and urgent issues, it is very easy to sensationalize, but very hard to sensitize. And that's the mantra we have stuck with in all our films. There are times, Enma, when I've said, it's okay if nobody watches our films, but we will strive to sensitize the audience, even if it means losing eyeballs.
I love it. I want to double click a little bit more on this journey in the plane, right? It's almost like Vishal and your mentor together helped you launch your career.
No, actually, I had moved to the United States and I was searching for a job. So definitely I had films in mind, I had media in mind, I had broadcast in mind, but it was waiting for the right break. I interviewed with channels, and the slots that I was getting is reporting time 2 a.m. for the 5:30 morning news. And I think my priority was that I want to build the foundation of my marriage. So there were two offers that I declined. And so when the opportunity came to meet Marianne, I was very excited to meet her. And that time, it was the year that she won the Academy Award. And we were very privileged to attend the Academy Awards where we saw her win. And the next day, she took me on as her co-producer.
So call it happenstance, call it serendipity, that flight was the changing point.
Absolutely. You just never know when opportunity strikes, but you have to seize that moment. And I got the biggest break with Marianne Delio.
So let's talk about then your mentoring relationship. And, I have started putting together these success factors of all my Atlantas. And just last week, I created this little clip on building mentorship and allyship, right? And clearly, that is such a critical success factor.
I mean, if you ask me today, after so many years of filmmaking, I am still learning every day, Enma.
Absolutely.
I am learning from ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things. And I think with Marianne, I was starting another chapter.
Sure.
And, I think what Marianne did for me is she laid the values and the foundations of documentary filmmaking. And I am very, very blessed that when I moved to India, we built one of the most solid film teams. And we continue to work together. I think Marianne was very generous in terms of giving opportunity for having trust in me. Yeah. I think the kudos goes more to her that she was able to leave me to do so many things so that I could prove it to her that I can deliver. And over time, the relationship changes. At the end of it, Enma, you have to deliver.
Yeah, of course.
And then it is your work that is going to speak much louder than anything. And Marianne has watched all my films as the sole director and producer. And she has shared that with me on how emotional it was for her to see me now independently make films. And she is and will always be one of my biggest supporters, my mentor, and my very, very dear friend.
So I heard the word values, that she helped
Yes.
you to understand the values of documentaries and so on. So what are Vibha's values, and how has Vibha ensured that those values have sort of percolated down this amazing team that you built?
I think with filmmaking comes a great responsibility, because the power of storytelling
Mm.
can influence mindsets. And I lived through it when I made my film, Daughters of Mother India. It focused on the aftermath of Nirbhaya, the medical intern who was gang raped in a moving bus. Many people may or may not remember, but India made notorious headlines
Mm.
calling India the rape capital of the world. And Enma, I was in Delhi and I saw the revolution that broke out in my country. And I stood there as a very proud daughter of India,
Mm.
because I believe no other country in the world had reacted to a gender crime the way India did. But also, I was left asking the question, how did we get here? And at that point, Emma, I had gained access to the Delhi police. It was for the first time in the history of the police that cameras were allowed. Now, Enma, what do I do with this access?
Mm.
Do I focus on a burning country, or do I try to ignite hope? And I went with hope, because without hope, no fight can be won. And this is a fight that we cannot afford to lose. And when you talk about values, Enma, I'm so happy you've asked this question, because however dark the issue may be, I hope that I will always leave the viewer with that hope.
Mm.
At least the ability to get up and say, it's not over. Change can happen. And that's how I took you from Daughters of Mother India, which put the spotlight on rape, and I take you to the sequel, which is Haryana, India's seat of patriarchy, because in this whole fight, where are the men?
Mm.
And it is very important to make boys and men a part of the movement for change. Otherwise, gender justice seems like a very, very, very far away dream.
And I feel we need to have that confidence that they are also interested in making that change. And I don't think it's a men versus women thing. It has to be carrying them along, showing them a better path, showing them that things can change.
Enma, I'm so happy that you've said it, because for an international audience, I'd like to give backdrop. It has got, the notorious title of being India's seat of patriarchy, right? It also has the most sex skewed ratio, as in the preference for a male child, way outweighs the want for a daughter. And this is the region that I enter. And as a woman filmmaker, I'm questioning the patriarchs,
Yep.
right? This could have been a very different film, Emma. I could have focused on everything that's going wrong. Instead, I focused on a handful of gender right allies, my gender right heroes, who are breaking the shackles of patriarchy, right?
True.
And from the unlikeliest corners, I have found male allies. Because unless you don't show people what that looks like, we don't have role models. Today, I am very, very proud to share that Sunrise is screening across India in all boys' schools. This is a more important conversation to happen. In fact, the High Court in Mumbai just came up with a verdict that said, make it mandatory. It was not a verdict, it was a recommendation. Make gender sensitization mandatory for all boys' schools.
Mm.
Today, we have reached 5 million students in India. this is the need of the hour. But you cannot find your role models just in a Bollywood hero. These are real people. These are ordinary people who are doing the extraordinary. It has made it very relatable that they can do it, so can I. And that too, hope and courage is coming out of the unlikeliest corners. And that is why Sunrise got selected by the United Nations to be part of the global he for she movement across 71 countries, because once again, it did not matter that Sunrise was a story from India. It's a story about humanity.
Let's talk about these ordinary men who've done extraordinary work, right? How did you go about, first of all, how come Haryana? So take us through that journey of research, like Kusum's husband, that village chief. Like, it's incredible what they've done.
So, what had happened was Daughters of Mother India, which was focused on gender sensitizing the police. We had begun our screenings across India. We had covered about 150,000 police officers. I was getting calls from every commissioner saying, we would like to screen for the force. And it is also playing now at the National Police Academy for all training officers to come in. Because unless the police is not gender sensitized, justice will not be delayed. It will be denied. It is through these screenings that I had reached Haryana. And at the screening, there's an activist who came up to me and said, ma'am, there is a farmer who in an arranged marriage has married a gang rape survivor. And I would say, happily stunned, because given how patriarchal the state is, this was unbelievable news. And I went in search of that farmer. I had no name, I had no village name, but I had the police. I knew all the cops. So with the help of the police, I tracked down this farmer. And I asked him, I said, what made you do this? How come you decided to marry a gang rape survivor in an arranged marriage? And at that point, he looked at me and he said, in Haryanvi, the shame is not hers, it's ours. And that day, Sunrise was born.
Very, very powerful, Vibha. And kudos to you also to not give up and stay so committed to the topic, which is just such an urgent need. Yeah.
Enma, the full credit goes to the farmer, to Inder Chattar, to his wife Kusum, who unveiled in the film to tell the story, because Kusum has given so much strength to so many women by putting the shame where it belongs, not on the survivor, but on those who've committed this heinous crime.
Horrible, yeah. I even thought even her in-laws, right? So they could have easily,
Amazing.
yeah, they could have easily dissuaded the son and said, "Are you crazy?" Like they could have not even had the marriage. Like she talked about it before the.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when I was first time filming and the accent was so strong in Haryanvi, I couldn't understand what the mother was saying. I mean, you've got help due to subtitling. So,
Subtitles.
I kept filming her, whatever it is. At one point, I remember, which is the select that we did in the film, when she says, I have raised my son with so much love, but today I have given him up to fight for her honor. And if he dies fighting for his wife's honor, he will have died an honorable death. And I was like, oh my God. I'm also a mother of 2 sons, and I don't know whether I'd be able to do that. So you're absolutely right. The farmer's parents, Kusum's in-laws, have been amazing. And actually, Enma, for all the screenings, wherever we've screened, people have clapped in between. in between these real life heroes speaking.
Totally.
It's almost become like an interactive affair.
So while this is going to be an audio production, but people are going to see your picture on the graphic, right? And on a lighter note, Vibha is from South Bombay, and the South Bombay lady goes to the hinterlands of Haryana. And my question to you is, Vibha, did people take you seriously? If yes, like what did you do to make sure they take you seriously? If no, talk to us about the challenges and then how did you navigate them? Because I think as a filmmaker and the kind of, provocative questions you ask, I know how anywhere, like people will judge you and then decide if whether they can trust you or not. So,
Yeah, and actually, many journalists have, I think, tried to ask me the question that what is it that you know about the hinterlands?
mm,
Living in a big city, you come from a background of privilege. Um, who are you to tell the story? And, why are you telling the story? And I've responded by saying, why not?
mm,
You know, I am blessed that um, I come from this background, but I also have to tell you that with this privilege comes responsibility. And the responsibility on how do you use your voice?
yeah.
How do you use your resources? How do you use your platform to amplify the voices of change? But forget anyone else. I think what shocked my family is how I was able to navigate the hinterlands. I mean, we were living in very tiny motels. They were actually trucker stops.
Wow.
Um, we were paying maybe $5 to $10 a night. And the accommodation was very, very tough to live in. And many, many times it was very dangerous because I had a crew of 5 men and me. So it was very easy to be character assassinated.
Mm,
And what I decided to do is that instead of blending in,
mm,
actually, I said, let me stand out, because I used that to my advantage, that I became so different that people didn't know whether they were supposed to fear me or cooperate with me. And so I went how I would be dressed in the city, and I went in to question the patriarchs. But because the story was getting dangerous, because I was following a gang rape survivor, there were times we had to change routes. It used to get dark by 5 o'clock. We used to lose cell reception. We began changing our cars and drivers. There were times I could hear men outside my room. So I think the person on the ground told the other men that there is one woman in that room. And we exited from that motel at 2:30 a.m. I mean, sometimes, in a joke, we used to say in the car that, ma'am, I think the story will start with, in honor of Vibha Bakshi, who was trying to make
oh
change happen.
God.
I mean, because I was not good news.
Yeah.
I was asking questions. And when I was following the case, the people who had committed the crime had seen me in court. And we know what the consequences can be. And so if I were to rewind, if I had to really think about it sensibly, is this the story that I wanted to tell? But I also want to share that when your intent is right, the universe conspires to make things happen.
Mm,
We became so strong with the President's Awards, with the United Nations partnership. The media was amazing to amplify the voices of the heroes, that after that, we became way stronger than any threat that would come my way. And in fact, I sent a message back saying, we are arriving. And if anything were to happen to us, whether you're involved or not, you will be taken behind bars. And we are very grateful to the media on how they have supported Sunrise. And in fact, we have one of the biggest PR firms called Weber Shandwick that is supporting the film and the movement pro bono. So through this journey, I have also seen goodness overflow.
But what kept you going, Vibha? Like, this is something which we need to talk about a little bit more, right? Label those emotions for me, and how did you then deal with them? Like, obviously, quitting wasn't an option.
I think when you set out for this journey, we are already prepared. It's not going to be easy. There is no script. There's no second chance. What you film, you get. And the story is done on the editing floor. And I will share something very personal with you as to what keeps us going. I was doing Daughters of Mother India, and unfortunately, I got a call in the police control room, and we rushed to the site. And what we found was a 5-year-old who was gang raped. We rushed her to the hospital. When the doctors examined her, there were candles inserted inside her. And I called up my husband, and my boys were much younger. And I said, I want to return home. I am not brave enough to tell this story. And Vishal said to me, you cannot unsee what you've seen. And the only way you can get closure is when your film releases and one life is saved. And the entire team returned back to be with Guria and her family. You know, the accolades are great because it opens doors, Enma. That's what it has done. It amplifies the voices of all the change makers who are featured in the film. But what we are working towards is impact. And impact translates into change in mindset. And that hope is what keeps us going.
Beautiful. So, Vibha is not just a filmmaker. Vibha is also a change maker, right? So, talk to me about that journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. With every film that I've done, I am with the film for 2 to 3 years. So for me, making the film is just one part of the journey. But to take that film and use the power of storytelling to change mindsets is actually why we are doing what we're doing. And even with Daughters of Mother India, I spent 3 years screening the film across the world, screening the film from the length and breadth of our country to every police officer that we could get our hands on. You know, change of mindset is very, very hard to put it down and say, well, this has been the impact. But we will continue to do what we're doing. With Sunrise, our hero, the village chief who's fighting for a better world for his daughters, was featured on the front page of New York Times.
Beautiful.
Today, he is a chapter in the Indian textbooks, reaching 10 million students.
Wow.
Today, Sunrise is across 71 of UN's priority countries to end gender bias. That is all a very, very integral part of my journey as a filmmaker.
Let's talk a little bit about Vibha as a person, right? So while I understand the threat to Vibha's life, for lack of a better word, when you were going and shooting, but I want to talk about how did people take you seriously? I'm assuming there were challenges.
I think if you ask me, I used wit. There was one situation that in Sunrise, I went to interview India's biggest cup leader. And for an international audience, a cup leader is the leader who has maybe 800 villages under him. They dictate what the social norms are. They operate outside the law, but they are the ones who will be giving the verdict on, on rape, on gender violence, on dowry deaths, on whatever it is. I was so nervous to interview him. So I told my director of photography, who's from Haryana, you interview him because of language problems, and he's not going to let a woman interview him. But as luck had it, my DOP was not available for the interview because he had a family emergency. And so here I was in my very big sunglasses,
Right.
totally not dressed the way the cup leader would have expected me to. And I sat down for the interview. And I think he watched me with a very strong bias as much as I was watching him. And then a point came when he would not even look at me. He was looking at the tree, he was looking at the crow, but he would not make eye contact with me because he did not think I was worthy of eye contact. And then at one point, I just said to him in Hindi, okay, let's be frank with each other. You don't like me and I don't like you, right? We both are carrying a lot of biases against each other. So let's start fresh. I said, I'm going to leave my prejudices behind. You leave yours just for 45 minutes and let's give it a shot. I think he was just so stunned that somebody was talking to him like this, that I think out of curiosity, he gave that chance. And I remember his other, they come in a group of men. They almost stopped the interview. And he just raised his hand and he said, we will proceed with the interview. Because just before I had done all this, he had said, there is no place for women here.
Yeah.
From there to letting me do the interview, to fast forward 3 years, today he has become one of the biggest champions for Sunrise. What a circle we have completed with this. And for that, I would say, even as a filmmaker, and you have a point of view, leave your own biases, your own prejudices, and your own judgment behind. And that, Enma, has played a very, very critical part in the storytelling. And I mean, I will go to the extent, I am here filming the Delhi police. I saw everything, the good, but the bad, the ugly, everything. But was very clear that keep your own biases and prejudices behind. Because after all, the police have also not come from out of space. They are also a mirror of how society thinks. So if that cop is going to tell a woman, instead of taking down the rape case, turns around and says, I don't know what you were doing out at 3 o'clock in the morning, wearing those clothes. Well, you know what? That's what that neighbor is thinking too.
Yeah.
So we removed our own biases and started fresh. And I think that added a lot of perspective to the storytelling. And thankfully, the entire team, the editor, Hemanti Sarkar, the director of photography, Athar Singh Saini and Rakesh Haridas have played a very important role to leave their own biases behind. And, then if I'm wearing big sunglasses or whatever clothes, it doesn't matter.
There's a certain stereotype which you carry with you, right? So how do you strike that balance? How do you navigate roles? How do you don different hats according to the situation? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It does. I know I tell stories that are sometimes tough to watch. Okay, they are tough to watch. But I hope through my stories, I still have kept my viewers engaged and entertained right through. And that's how I view my life. I enjoy it. I am passionate about life. I'm passionate about storytelling. I enjoy the process, the trials and the triumphs, and I enjoy my life. And humor, even when we are in the toughest of situations, has kept me going, both while I'm filming and in my daily life. So actually, I don't change much. I may change on the editing floor when I have to tell the story. But when it comes to even filming, I'm telling you, we've had many laughs in the trickiest and the most dangerous situations. And I think that's what keeps you going. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard to continue this journey. When I was navigating in Delhi, I remember that I had access to the police, but I didn't have like a letter from the police commissioner saying that, you know, give her absolutely, all access to every police station. So at the end of it, it was one's personality that I had to go from police station to police station. And I remember I could clear security very fast. And I remember telling my team, if you take that for granted, I will not be there to clear your security, because I felt they were taking it for granted. So I left them one day and said, you clear your own security, and they got stuck. So I said, do not take my personality for granted. So I think you have to use whatever you have, right? Whether it's using humor at that time, or using authority, or using your privilege, or whatever it is, to be able to get access. Because, Enma, access is key to documentary filmmaking. Without access, you have nothing. So you operate very, very differently in different places. I think in Delhi, I used authority. I had to come across somebody who's very powerful, so everyone cooperated with me. In Haryana, I had to become one with them.
Yeah.
They had to trust me. I had to live on the ground with them. And I think by living on the ground with them changed everything. So we were eating in people's homes, and that was the game changer here. We became one with them. We stayed with them. We ate with them. And finally, it is the people of Haryana who gave me access to their lives and who allowed me to tell their stories.
How has telling these stories transformed you personally?
As I said, I use films as a continuous learning journey. It has taught me to be a student of life. And I think through every film, I become a different person. I hope I become a more evolved person, because if you're telling the story, you're also living it. And for that, I am forever grateful that I am blessed with both the opportunity and the craft to do what I do. And, I've got this thing which is next to my bedside, which says, I dare to dream to change the world. So I get up in the morning and I look at it. I don't know how far I will go with this, but it is changing lives one story at a time. And even if one life got changed, the journey has been totally worth it.
Vibha, difficult question. So these are all, real stories. And there is sometimes a strange kind of a guilt. And I think at some level, I felt that guilt when I saw the movies yesterday. Like I can't tell you, I was so overwhelmed. And you literally lived through it. Like you're saying, for Gudia, you literally got the call and you ran there. So what kind of feelings do you go through when you see those stark realities? I mean, of course, there's gratitude that thank God for what we have. Is there any other feeling?
Yeah, I feel so lucky that I have the support system that I do. I feel very lucky that I have a voice and a craft that can amplify the silenced voices. I feel very lucky that I have the resources that I can use to tell the stories that need to be told. So if you ask me, no guilt, just feel very blessed. What is important is, Enma, that in the world that we are living in, or whatever your reality may be, the question we have to ask is, how do I pay forward? Everybody is working to the best potential that they can. But if those who are a little bit more blessed, then what do you do with it? I say this to my children all the time. I have two boys. I tell them, you have an amazing life and amazing opportunities. Strive to be the best version of yourself. And today, my older son, as he is finishing the 12th, I feel so happy to see him as one of the biggest gender rights advocate. And actually, he has done very well in his board exams and in the 12th, but he's taking a gap year to continue with the movement for a more safer and equitable world, as he has been since grade 8. To me, when I look at this, I feel maybe something right has been done.
So what's next for Vibha?
I am now in the thick of editing an international release, and we're hoping to release by February, have the best team working on it. It is an issue that impacts the entire world. We feel it's one of the most important narratives to come out, but lips are sealed. We will release the surprise in February.
Wish you all the very best, Vibha, and thank you very much for sharing such powerful reflections. And I look forward to meeting you at some point in Bombay.
Absolutely. And thank you very much, Enma. This was so heartfelt and it just flowed. And thank you for doing what you do. Just continue to amplify. There's so many amazing stories out there. And if in any way we've impacted somebody, that's great.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, do hang on for just one more minute. I have a request for you. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Atlanta Diaries on Spotify, iTunes, or whichever platform you follow. Do join us in our mission to empower and inspire by sharing the podcast with a friend or colleague. It will be great if you can share on the social media platforms you follow, be it LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or any other. Please leave a review or rating on iTunes or Spotify. It really helps us reach a wider audience. Lastly, I wanted to share with you that many of my coaching clients and listeners have created a cheat sheet with their key takeaways from the episodes. I invite you to consider jotting down 1 or 2 key takeaways as you navigate your amazing journey. Have a wonderful rest of the day and see you next week for another inspiring journey on Atlanta Diaries.